The jungle pressed against him like a living thing, its weight tangible. The air was thick with moisture, its humidity wrapping around Commander Rayner's body, clinging to his fatigues as though the very atmosphere sought to hold him down, to keep him from moving forward. The roar of the jaguar was still fresh in his ears, its golden eyes burned into his memory. That was no ordinary animal. He didn't know what to make of it yet, whether it was merely hunting or if there was something more to its behavior, something beyond the instinct to kill. Rayner had narrowly escaped the predator's claws, but that didn't mean he was out of danger. The jaguar might have retreated for now, but there was no guarantee it wouldn't return. This was a jungle where survival was no longer a certainty, and every decision could be his last. He paused at the edge of the stream, looking at the rippling water, trying to steady his breath. Every moment in this alien world felt like a new test. He had long since ceased to care whether it made sense or not. Survival had become instinct. His body was bruised, exhausted, and on the verge of collapse, but his mind was sharp, driven by the weight of his choices. You ran. You abandoned them. The thought gnawed at him, a voice in his mind that wasn't so easily silenced. He had always prided himself on his honor, on being the one his team could rely on. But in the end, when it came down to the wire, he had chosen himself. A coward's decision. And yet here he was, still alive. And maybe that, just maybe, was the only thing that mattered now. Taking a deep breath, he dipped his hands into the cold stream, cupping the water and bringing it to his lips. He drank deeply, the cool liquid easing the ache in his throat and filling him with a momentary sense of relief. It was the first real comfort he had experienced in days. The sound of movement from the jungle brought his senses back online. His hand went instinctively to his knife, but he knew he was defenseless without his armor, without proper weapons. The jaguar had been a reminder of how vulnerable he truly was. His knife alone wasn't enough. Stay alert, stay alive. Rayner moved away from the stream, back into the dense undergrowth. Every step felt like a struggle. His muscles ached with each motion, his breath ragged from both physical exertion and the weight of his conscience. He had to push through. He had no choice. He couldn't afford to slow down. His eyes flicked upward as the dense canopy above swayed in the breeze, casting shadows over the forest floor. It was beautiful, breathtaking in its alien splendor, but it was also dangerous. Every tree, every shadow could hide a threat. There were things on this planet that were not human, things that didn't care whether he had been a soldier or a survivor. They were just creatures, driven by their own need to exist. If I'm going to survive, I need to adapt. Rayner's mind raced through the countless lessons he had learned over the years. The survival drills, the combat training, the tactical strategies. But none of that had prepared him for this. There was no manual for surviving in a world like this. It was a raw, primal fight. A fight that didn't care about rank or history. It only cared about who was the strongest, who was the fastest, who was willing to do whatever it took to survive. A low growl broke the silence, drawing him out of his thoughts. The jaguar. He didn't need to see it to know it was nearby. The growl was closer this time, a sound that reverberated through his bones. Rayner tensed, his body already shifting into a defensive stance, his hand instinctively reaching for his knife. But his breath hitched as the jaguar emerged from the underbrush, stepping into the clearing just ahead. It was larger than he had expected, its sleek coat glistening in the dappled sunlight. Golden eyes locked onto Rayner's, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch. The predator studied him, its gaze unblinking, as though it were weighing him. Rayner stood motionless, the knife in his hand feeling small and insignificant against the sheer size and power of the beast. This wasn't the same animal he had encountered earlier. It wasn't charging, nor was it growling with intent to strike. It was simply watching him, its head slightly tilted, as if curious. Why is it still here? Rayner's mind raced. He didn't dare make a move, not yet. The jaguar's eyes never left him. The golden glow of those eyes was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. There was intelligence in them, something more than just instinct. Rayner's grip on the knife tightened, his heart pounding in his chest, but the jaguar didn't advance. Instead, it took a slow step back, never breaking eye contact. Then, to Rayner's surprise, the beast turned and padded away, melting into the jungle with the same silent grace it had arrived with. He stood there for a long moment, staring after it. The air seemed to hum with energy, the forest alive with the whisper of leaves and distant sounds of life. It wasn't over. Rayner knew that much. But for now, the jaguar had retreated. What did it want? That question would linger in Rayner's mind for days. Was it testing him, or had it simply lost interest? Whatever the reason, it had given him a chance to survive. He couldn't afford to waste it. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the jungle, Rayner continued on, weaving his way through the trees, his thoughts swirling. The jaguar was not just an obstacle, it was a reminder of the wilderness, of the raw forces of nature that govern this planet. And somehow, in the strangest of ways, Rayner felt a strange kinship with the animal. In his years as a soldier, he had never felt as exposed as he did now. Out here in this unknown world, he was no longer a commander, no longer a Marine. He was just another creature, struggling to survive. As night began to fall, he found a small clearing and set up camp. The fire crackled, the heat a welcome contrast to the chill that settled with the darkness. His knife lay beside him, the only weapon he had left. The stars above seemed far away, distant, like the ghosts of his past, reminding him of everything he had left behind. He sat there for a long time, staring into the flames, the flickering light casting shadows on his face. His thoughts wandered, unbidden, to his fallen comrades, the men and women he had left behind. The weight of their memories was crushing, but now in this strange and unfamiliar place, he had no choice but to carry it, to remember them, because they were gone, and all he had left was this world, this jungle, and the jaguar that had shown him something he couldn't quite understand. The bond between man and beast, he realized, wasn't so different from the bond between soldiers. A shared struggle, a shared drive to survive. There was no room for weakness in the jungle, only strength, and perhaps in time he would find his place here. As the fire burned low and the jungle around him came to life with the sounds of night creatures, Rayner allowed himself to close his eyes. The jaguar might have spared his life today, but tomorrow was a new day, and in this world nothing could be taken for granted. He was on his own now, but somehow that didn't feel as frightening as it had before. Rayner's fire had burned low, the faint embers casting shadows against the cavern walls. The warmth seeped into his bones, doing little to ease the dull ache radiating through his body. His encounter with the jaguar had cost him more than just blood. It had reminded him of his vulnerability. His gear was in shambles, his armor barely holding together, and his helmet, his last real connection to his former world, was gone. Yet he was still alive, and for now that was enough. He took another bite of the roasted meat from the small, rodent-like creature he had managed to trap. It was tough, gamey, and unseasoned, but it sustained him. He had to be careful, though. His presence in the jungle was now more than just a passing anomaly. His crash had drawn attention, both from the strange military force he had seen earlier and the predatory creatures that roamed this world. He glanced at the crude barrier he had fashioned at the entrance of his shelter. It wouldn't hold against a determined attack, but it would give him precious seconds to react. Right now, seconds meant survival. Rayner took a deep breath, letting his mind process the situation. He needed to move. Staying in one place too long was suicide. The soldiers tracking him were methodical, patient, and well-equipped. They had technology that outmatched his own, and if they found him, there would be no fighting his way out. His only advantage was the terrain. He had trained in jungle warfare before, and if this place shared even a fraction of Earth's characteristics, he could use it to his benefit. His thoughts returned to the rift, the anomaly that had brought him here. It had been his only escape, but escape to where? This world felt like Earth, looked like Earth, but it wasn't. The sky had a faint violet hue at dusk, and the stars were subtly wrong, unfamiliar constellations dotting the heavens. If he could find a vantage point, he might be able to get his bearings. Perhaps there was a way home, if home still existed. The sound of rustling leaves snapped his attention back to the present. He froze, every muscle in his body coiled with tension. The jungle was never truly silent, but this sound was deliberate, calculated. Someone or something was nearby. Rayner reached for his knife, the cool handle reassuring in his grip. He moved carefully, inching toward the edge of his shelter, peering out into the thick foliage. The shadows shifted, but he saw nothing. His heartbeat pounded against his ribs. Then a whisper, faint, almost carried away by the wind. Search radius extended. Last known trajectory. Should be close. Rayner's grip tightened. The soldiers. They were here. He knew better than to linger. Staying meant capture, and capture meant death, or worse. With practiced movements, he gathered what little supplies he had and melted into the jungle, keeping low, using the thick vegetation as cover. He moved like a ghost, his breath shallow, every step precise. The soldiers were close now. He could hear them moving through the undergrowth, their footsteps disciplined, their scanning equipment humming softly in the night air. They weren't just guessing. They had a way to track him. He needed to break their pursuit. Rayner's eyes darted around, searching for anything he could use. The jungle was full of dangers, not just for him, but for anyone who didn't respect its unforgiving laws. And he knew exactly how to use that to his advantage. His fingers found a cluster of vines, thick and sturdy. Quickly, he began setting a trap. Nothing complex, just enough to create a diversion. He looped the vines around a weakened branch, setting it at an angle. The moment someone stepped into the snare, the branch would snap upward, releasing a cascade of loose debris and noise. It wouldn't harm them, but it would force them to pause, to second-guess their advance. Minutes passed. Then, movement. A soldier stepped directly into the snare. The trap sprung to life, the branch whipping upward, sending a shower of leaves and twigs into the air. The sudden burst of noise triggered an immediate reaction. The soldiers fanned out, their weapons raised, scanning in all directions. Rayner used the momentary confusion to slip away. He moved fast, weaving through the jungle, putting distance between himself and his pursuers. His lungs burned, his body protested, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Then he saw it, a cliff edge looming ahead. The ground dropped off sharply, a sheer fall into darkness. Rayner skidded to a halt, his mind racing. Trapped. Behind him, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. The soldiers were regrouping, closing in. He had only seconds to make a choice. His eyes scanned the edge, searching for a path. A vine, thick and winding, trailed down the rock face, disappearing into the shadows below. It was a gamble, but so was staying and fighting. Without hesitation, Rayner grabbed the vine and leapt over the edge. The world tilted as he descended, his grip burning as the rough fibers bit into his palms. The vine creaked under his weight, but it held. He landed hard, his knees buckling as he hit the forest floor below. Pain shot up his legs, but he ignored it. He had survived the drop, but now he was deeper into unknown territory. The jungle here was darker, the trees twisted and ancient, their roots stretching like grasping fingers. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the trunks, casting an eerie glow. Strange, distant calls echoed through the night, calls that did not belong to any animal he recognized. Rayner exhaled sharply. He wasn't out of danger yet. The soldiers wouldn't give up so easily. They would regroup, they would find another route down, and they would continue the hunt. But now he had the advantage. He knew how to disappear, how to become the jungle itself, and he would not be caught. Rayner turned and disappeared into the shadows, ready for whatever came next.